They're going to do a presentation to show you what the mayor's vision is of the park, and the takeaway here is to hopefully get your input on what we're doing here. So with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming tonight. I'm Carly Picard. I'm a landscape architect with SLR, and so we want to start by telling you a little bit about the park. Everybody's kind of familiar with the site, but we're going to talk about the overall project vicinity and how it connects, and the hopes that we have that it connects the two neighborhoods, Carrington neighborhood and the Bunker Hill neighborhood. So this is a school property, and it's going to be connected to the Carrington school. That's why we're calling it the Carrington Learning Garden, so that it becomes not just an amenity for the community, but also a really good amenity for the school. And if possible, Bunker Hill, it's only a 1.2 mile walk from Bunker Hill Elementary School, so they could also probably use the learning park as well. So the project area, there you go, we just described a little bit of this. When was this built? Not too long ago. Yeah. This current site was built up above the hill. The existing field you see right there was the old school, as you guys are all probably familiar with. And then the site that we're working on was primarily parking and a small playground for the entire school. So we know it gets lots of use by kids still after school, coming down, gets used by the public, but it's not a very fun space. So this is some utilities and topography. We need to understand the slopes and what's happening here, that sort of influenced our design. Yep, and then here's some pictures. We'll go over the existing site. So one thing that's pretty unique about this is that Cynthia M. Zorski, this original playground was memorial, it was a memorial to her. She was a previous teacher. It's got really old site furnishings. It's mostly, a paved parking lot. There's no formal access to the playground. There's no connections from the neighborhoods. There's no safe walkways for kids. So that's that. You want to go ahead and move forward, Mark? This is just a site analysis sketch. This helps us understand the site a little bit and help, hopefully, the public understand some of the constraints and things that we're working with, and opportunities too. So, where you see the green, that's where the slope is really flat, so that makes a really good spot for any type of passive, maybe a field. The red is a really steeper spot, so there's not much we can do in that unless we grade that out. And then in the back, we have sort of the nature area and another parking lot back there. Again, it's not too steep, but that kind of influences where you want to put things in the design. So these are just some pictures and some, strange things that we found on site. For example, the utility poles right in the middle of a walkway, so there is no ADA access. And so what we really want to do is we're going to try to fix that problem there. It's also really good sight lines to the neighborhood. The neighborhood can see right into the park, and then there's no formal entry. You see there's no crosswalks connecting any of the neighborhoods to the park entrance, and that's the main park entrance. On the lower picture, oh, no, that's okay, that's it. The existing crosswalk doesn't really make sense where it's at right now. The trees litter everything, the asphalt's cracked, so we can go on to the next. Up on the top left, that's just kind of a picture showing there's lots of invasive species of vegetation in that back little nature area, so we want to clean that up and limb up the trees, get rid of the dead trees. If anybody has questions about, there's a few trees along the sidewalk that are still relatively healthy, but as you can see on the bottom right, very messy, really hard to maintain. Those trip hazards, the roots are ruining the sidewalk and into the road pavement. There's some drainage issues along the road, as you can see. And so the water kind of flows from the top of the school here, down the hill, down onto the flat lawn above, and then down into the site. And since, this is all paved, it runs right off of that into those neighborhoods back here. So existing conditions, so we know that the playground gets some use. We know that it's not in the best condition. It does need some repairs, but really we would like to replace it with something better and something new. The pavement and fencing. The fencing is in okay condition, but we want to replace that with ornamental fence The vegetation obviously needs some removal and trimming, and it's just not very inviting. It's not a place that you really want to hang out for very long. So then we'll go into the opportunities. Mark's going to touch on that. The visibility and the access to the school and from the other neighborhoods is great. It's the open, flat, full sun for lots of different purposes, but education is really what we're going to focus on this one. So we'll show you some cool uses that we've come up with, and then we also have that lightly wooded lower parcel, so that'll incorporate some of those educational elements too into a nature walk. So we really want to improve the sense of pride into this park and provide, the community a great new place.
Thanks, Carly. Mark Aragoni, another landscape architect. Sorry for that. You got a bunch of us here. So Carly went through the existing conditions. We didn't survey this site. We didn't have field crews out there going and surveying. We used existing mapping. There's some pretty good mapping available in order to sort of get a base map so we could develop some concepts. Very early on, we had some discussions with the mayor and sort of a stakeholder group, we'll say, sort of a project team to see, what are some of the themes that we may have as professionals who have done this in a lot of other communities, but what are some themes that you may have been hearing around the community? We're also here, we're going to show you where we got to a preferred concept, but that doesn't mean that we don't want input on that concept. This is the right time to come, present to you, get a little feedback. But these are some themes that I think you'll know as you look at the master plan and how we describe it to you. These are some of the elements that we show in 2 dimensions that you can visualize. Maybe this is what they actually would look like. A new playground. That's a primary focus, is to get a new playground. Carly is also a certified playground safety inspector. So one of the things she does inherently is look at a playground, figure out if it's worth renovating, retrofitting, or it's really time to just start from scratch. This one really is the time to start from scratch. It is a memorial playground, but that doesn't mean we can't take that Cynthia Zorski and bring it into the new playground. So a new playground. I think we have opportunity with some grade change. It can be a constraint, but it also can be an opportunity for some nature paths, change in grade, pretty nice. Open lawn area, we talked about that upper plateau, and we talked about the potential park being non-inviting. Well, that's because it was a parking lot, so it really wasn't that inviting, but I think we have a lot of opportunity to maybe create that entry gateway, make it a little bit more inviting, almost like a backyard space or a front yard space for the neighborhood, but also a space for the school to actually use. Outdoor education, we're really going to look at tying that educational component. Not every new park space has the opportunity to be connected to a school community. This one does, so we're going to sort of build upon that. And then we will show you where a potential restroom building could be located on this site. May not be as part of a phase 1 project, but we're going to make sure that we put everything in place that if a restroom is needed here after this park is built and constructed, that it's going to be a real simple project to put it back in. All right, so up on top of that screen, this is not the first iteration of the plan that we came up with. I think we came up with, I don't know, 4 or 5 different concepts, had some discussion, sort of finessed it and came up with the plan that you are looking at tonight. And I just want to go through and highlight a few things that may not be self-explainable by looking at the piece of paper or looking at the plan. So we're going to break it down into basically 6 areas. Number 1 is that entrance area, sort of the new crosswalk that connects into the school across Kenmore Avenue. We're going to talk a little bit about that open grassed area. We're going to talk about where it says drop off and sort of a new sort of focused entrance plaza. What's shown in that square area is a little shade pavilion, keep you out of the rain, give you a little bit of sun protection in an otherwise pretty open venue. Number 4 right there is that new playground, sort of top of the line, nice new playground. Number 5 over there is a stormwater quality feature. There is no stormwater management handling on this site right now, even though it was a parking lot. Carly talked a little bit about, and all the rainwater that comes down the hill, across the street, and onto that site right now runs off, down, and off the site. So we have an opportunity to maybe create a stormwater infiltration feature that also has an educational component. Why do you need a stormwater control. Why do you need that? It might be nice to explain to a classroom, oh, this is why you see stormwater quality basins. This is what's happening there. And number 6, we're going to try and use the wooded area. Right now it's not used. It's not inviting. Understory, underbrush, the trees are all way down. Our idea is to limb up those trees, bring them up to like 8 or 10 feet, the existing trees, and clear out the underbrush and potentially build a walking path in the back there with some educational, informational signage. Potentially we've done some story walk opportunities where you include the library, sort of a learning experience that just can be put on stakes and change, maybe a different book every month, something like that. So there are some pretty unique things you can do with a simple pathway. So we'll jump into just a little blow up you'll see of that entrance, sort of, hey, there is actually a park here now. It's not a parking lot with just some trees. So we're going to improve the crosswalk. Right now that crosswalk sits, as I'll go a little engineering on you. The crosswalk right now, I invite you all to look at it. You may know, the crosswalk sits behind the stop bar for the cars. So if you pull up to that intersection and you have 2 or 3 cars, which we all know there is queuing there, and you want to cross that road to get into this space, there's a car parked on the crosswalk. The other thing is the guide rail right now on the school entrance driveway wraps pretty much all the way around that corner, and it doesn't really give you a really nice connection across. So these are non-park improvements that are critically important to the park development. So we're going to really dress up this corner. It'll become sort of a, hey, there's a nice park behind here, not only for the neighborhood, but for the school and people who do come visit. So that's really that number 1 area. Let's go to number 2. The other sort of focal entrance portion of the park, which is not necessarily on the street, this becomes, go back one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to come up here.
There it goes.
So what's shown in the green box right there, that would be a small pavilion, 4 posts, metal roof, 12 foot by 12 foot, an area to get you out of the sun, an area to get you out of a quick rainstorm, maybe 1 fixed table underneath there. Microphone, I'll go back over. Again, Carly mentioned a little bit about the fencing. The plan for this park at this stage is to replace all the fencing along the street with an ornamental vertical picket metal fence rather than a chain link fence. It's a little bit of a facelift, but the chain link fence that surrounds the perimeter, maybe in the woods, things like that, that'll stay a chain link, replace where it needs to be. But all the fencing along the frontage is going to be replaced to a more decorative fence. A nice concrete plaza, so that will be similar material to what you see out in the front of the school entrance right over here. But we do have the opportunity to maybe do some inlays, some historical descriptions of maybe the area, what used to be here, how the school moved, maybe some city history just in the actual pavement, whether it be stamped or something like that. And then you see the actual playground, which is a focal point of this new park design. Poured in place, rubberized surfacing, no wood chip mulch or engineered wood fiber, new swings, some benches for parents or guardians to actually look and watch the kids. This playground will be fenced in order to contain. And right now the age group is 2 to 5 is the primary target use for that playground. And then if you see right off to the top side, there's a gray rectangle. That gray rectangle is going to be the pad, or the underground infrastructure will be run to there for a potential bathroom. So whether that bathroom goes out in the bid documents as a bid alternate when this goes out to get construction prices, or it becomes a phased approach, the idea is we want to do everything we can to make it a simple sort of plug and play if we want to add a restroom, if there's a need for a restroom at a future date. Next one. Okay, now we're talking a little bit about focusing on the stormwater management. So it would drop in grade, it would be a depression, it would be heavily planted. We could do butterfly boxes, we could put a bird box, we could do some bat boxes. The idea is that area to the left of that stormwater basin could be a small deck overlook where you could put some informational signage on the railing, sort of describe what's happening with the stormwater quality basin, talk about flora, fauna, all kinds of things like that that may tie into a science school program or something like that to come out and actually watch how this actually functions. So an opportunity, we think it's good for the environment, good for the stormwater runoff on the engineering side, but it's also a potential to be an educational feature as well. What's also shown is that trail system that will loop down slope and around in the backside of the wooded area of the site. That right now is planned to be a pervious pavement material, a flexi pave, a pebble pavement. The idea is we want it to be natural. We'd love to just maybe do a stone dust or a stabilized earth, but we do have some grades and we worry a little bit about washouts. So we can't tell you that we'd love to do pervious. Exactly what that surface is going to be technically, don't really know yet, but that's the intent. We want it to be more of a nature pathway rather than a bikeway or a bike trail. So just some inspiration. We just looked at plan view. Now you're looking at some of the actual pictures of what some of these elements might be. So in the upper right, that gives you an idea what that pavilion element might be. Nothing extremely elaborate, but right now you're kind of far away from some shade and some protection from rain if you want to get out of it, and you're there for, a little bit of time. Ornamental fence, vertical picket. You sort of see that second picture in from the top on the right, getting away from chain link along the frontage. We're going to match signage to the Carrington school signage, sort of emulate that it is a school property and there is a connection to the Carrington school. And then I talked a little bit about your pavements. Concrete pavements can be very simple, easily to maintain, but we may have the opportunity to do some inlays or some features. Maybe there's some history or some education that we can actually cast right into the actual concrete to give it a little bit more of an interest. Again, easily maintained. Bathroom facility that you've seen in other city parks. And then I think we can have a little bit of fun with some of the furniture that we pick out there. Not everything has to be black, brown, white. We can bring in some colors and some snaps of color and add a little bit of interest to the park. And those are some things that we'd love to get some feedback on. Oh, I saw a park or a bench somewhere else in a different town or a different city. Those are really good reference points that we'd love to hear. Again, I talked a lot about education, informational signage. These are just some, you may not think of a city urban park having a water quality or an educational sort of natural path system, but you do have an opportunity, especially with the link to the school, to sort of make that happen. So we didn't really go into the name of the park, but we spent some time trying, how do you bring that education component? Do we just call it Carrington Park? Do we call it Carrington City Park? And the wording of Carrington Learning Park, we felt really kind of tied into the school, but it's also a park for the community. It's not just for the school. It's that multi-use, multifaceted park experience. And then I'll let Carly talk a little bit about the playground.
Yeah, so from these images you can kind of get an idea of what we're thinking, but the most important thing that we want to introduce, since this is a learning park, is the kids will be learning through play. We understand that, but there's also ground level elements, and these panels kind of describe some other learning elements that the kids can learn. There's everything from communication to sign language. You guys have probably seen those in some of the playgrounds before, but there's some really neat educational elements to playgrounds nowadays that we can put in and gear. There's musical instruments and things like that. And this nature theme, since we're kind of talking about that nature walk and everything else, it would be really nice to do a nature type theme. Yep, and then gearing towards those 2 to 5 year olds again. I'm gonna click through. All right, so now we really value your input and we'd like to welcome anybody who wants to come up and talk about it. Right at the microphone here. Don't hesitate to ask. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Why don't you just run through
Oh yeah, so next steps after tonight, we're going to refine the design and prepare a preliminary estimate of construction costs then we'll have a better idea of the program elements and the final design that we can go into. Then we anticipate bidding in early 2023, so January or February perhaps, and then construction can start in the summer and hopefully complete by 2024. I think that's it. So welcome anybody to ask any questions. Come on.
I'm just curious as to why the playground is targeting 2 to 5 years old, if this is tied to an elementary school where most of the kids are 5 and older.
Yep.
I spend a lot of time after school down there, and the majority of the students that use that area are 4th, 5th grade, and much older than that. So I would hate to see that space that those kids are utilizing currently no longer be there.
Yeah.
Wonderful question. We had the same question. We've showed it a couple different ways. This was the way that the plan ended up in concept form. So feedback, like your feedback, is perfect to hear. So I can't give you a solid answer right now, but I can tell you that good question, and all the questions that we get, we're going to take back. We're going to get back together with the group that helped us put this one together, and we'll make sure we come back with reasoning, logic, changes to the plan, revisions, and that's how we're gonna take it. But great question. Those are the types of things that, you know, we can come out and look at this park and spend a couple days out here, but we don't live here. So it's that everyday analysis that if you say, oh my God, if you look around the corner, there's also a section of sidewalk that needs to be replaced that you don't show on your plan. You know, it's little things like that. Throw it out there, because we may not get everything. So that's a perfect question. I can't give you a solid answer, but that's an easy thing to change or fix if that's the way that it's decided to go.
Do you guys plan to put any lighting around the trail? Want to utilize it later in the day? Or do you plan to put any lighting around anywhere in the park?
So good question. I'll tackle it toward a security type thing. So we talked about clearing the vegetation up to 10 feet of height. Right now, this park is planned to operate sunrise to sunset. There will be, it will be tied into the video security camera system that the city already has. That is a plan.
And a blue phone, so a light with
Yep.
a blue phone, so there'll be emergency.
Did everybody hear that? And an emergency phone system. That will be part of this park when it gets the final design. As far as lighting, the intent is not to light it up for after-hour use. That's not to say there may not be a light sort of at the street frontage near the pavilion, just that's a low level, we'll call it a security light, that may be a deterrent for somebody to actually sit there and use it in an overnight capacity, something like that. So right now, no lights, dawn to dusk operation.
You did mention security cameras?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Go right ahead.
Currently, there's an open field across the street that is utilized for soccer purposes or just an open field. So I'm curious if there's a way that you can cut back number 2 a little bit, maybe make that space a little smaller. Right now, there's one basketball hoop down in that space, and there's quite a few students that come down after school and play on that one hoop, and that hoop is trashed. It has no net, it has no backboard, and the kids still play on it. So I would love to see some type of space on there where they can still play basketball. Because, and maybe I wouldn't say that if there wasn't that space across the street where there's just a giant open field. But it's also something that they do utilize. I would love to see hoops that can raise and lower for the different age groups that can play on it. Because the closest, I know it's not that far of a walk, but the closest basketball court for the neighborhood up here is Bunker Hill Park. So if you can possibly incorporate some type of hard surface or asphalt where they can still have that space to play some basketball. I'd love to be able to see that.
Great. Thank you.
Good comment, thank you. And one thing I will say to that is potentially it doesn't have to be a full court, it could be a half court.
Yeah.
Because right now they only have a basket and it's not much of a basket. Yeah, agreed.
That's all it is, and they utilize it, they definitely do.
Yeah.
The other question I had is number 5, that area, the watershed area.
Mhm.
Will there be a fence around that? Because I could see potentially kids running into there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good detailed question. I mean, a lot of them we do have to fence off per city or municipal code. This one will be designed to only hold water during a rain event, and then it will infiltrate and we'll have a way to get the water out via an overflow pipe. I think the idea of it would be more of a visual onlook to it to explain it. I don't think kids would have to actually get into it. So probably would be fenced off, but we'd like to not just stick a chain link fence up there. We'd like to have an attractive fence that sort of fits in with the educational component and maybe mount signs on that fence, maybe not just on the overlook area. So detail, and I think that's something that will work itself out. But it's going to be designed to only hold water. It's not going to be a pond. It'll only hold water in a rainstorm or right after a rainstorm.
Will the park be maintained by the school, like maintenance, cleaning, or through the city?
Currently, it is a school property. I believe that is the case. It will be maintained by the school department.
Did you survey any of the current students as to what they would like to see in their park?
To my knowledge, we did not as part of ours, but very interestingly, we did have several, we had an individual student come up to us when we were having a discussion out on the site and asked the same question that you asked. Ma'am?
And to Mr. Poulter's point, I think if the park was directed more to the age group of the Carrington school, I think that would be a blessing. I mean, 2 to 5-year-olds, I'm sure the neighborhood has that age range, but I think if it was more directed towards the school and you know, you're going to have to increase the educational piece. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, good comment. We've heard it a couple times, so we're definitely going to take that one back. The playground equipment is really the only thing geared toward that 2 to 5 age group. The educational feature, the signage will probably be geared more toward the age group in this school or even the community at large. So that playground right now, which is we still got a comment on the playground, that's really the only 2 to 5 targeted. Everything else is going to be pretty universal, multi-generational, we'll call it. This side of the room, any questions?
Just have one more question. So the main entrance to the area would be that drop-off only area? Because currently, like, people walk through right now where that crosswalk is, that'll be closed off now?
No, there's going to be a pedestrian. You can't, it's hard to see from these details, but we'll have a maintenance access. Yeah, do we have a pointer?
Well, you can blow it up right there.
There you go. So we have a maintenance gate here and a pedestrian gate in that corner. So people will be able to access the park right through the grass right there.
And we didn't really talk about down here,
Oh, yeah, we didn't.
road grade drops off, park stays up high, so there will be a staircase access down there rather than having to walk all the way up and either access from the corner or the main part. We're going to have a gate and a staircase, a little small staircase access right there. And that run of sidewalk is where the utility poles are right in the sidewalk, and it's technically not universally accessible, which is another point. Our goal is to make this entire park universally accessible. So any grade on a pathway will be 5% or less than 5%. Trip hazards, steps, if we put a deck in, everything is the playground equipment, the playground surfacing, everything will be universally accessible.
Anything else?
So,
I think that's it. Oh, yeah.
Are there any more questions?
I'm just still really concerned about the playground equipment and the age group.
Mhm.
Every day this week I've been down at that park and there are no 2 to 5-year-olds down there.
Mhm.
So I'm just really concerned that the equipment on that is focused for 2 to 5-year-olds. Most students at the school are 5 and up. So, and in this community, I don't see many 2 and 5-year-olds coming out to use our playgrounds. Even Bunker Hill Park, that playground has a little bit of a mix of both, so if we can model the playground equipment off of that park, I would absolutely love that.
Okay.
But that's just my only concern.
good comment, good comment. One last thing, if you didn't get a chance to sign in on the sign-in sheet right on that table, please sign in, just so we know that you came. And your contact information, we'll let you know if we're going to have another meeting or if you want to be included on the next revised set of plans or something like that. But we really appreciate you coming out. I know it's not the best thing to do on a weeknight, you have other things to do, but it's important. So the comments that you make, we're going to take back. They're not going to be ignored, and even if we don't incorporate some things, you all deserve a reason as to why they're not incorporated. So thank you again for coming out.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, if anybody has questions too, I do have an email you guys can use.
Oh.